Hello everyone, I've not made one of these videos for a little while now, and I've recently changed the cabinet contents, the contents of the small display cabinet I have, and I thought it would be worth making another one of these videos looking at the various items that are on display in there now. This is to represent small kits, some of the items that would be in a soldier's small kit in Malaya in the 1950s, and obviously certain items like the J-Pack, which we'll see, are section issue, but just something aesthetic, something that looks nice and brings together some of these items from that time period. And I think it looks quite nice, and hopefully you'll find it interesting looking through the contents in the video.
So as already said, what we have here is a set of contents of the cabinet, basically illustrating some of the kit carried in the jungle. British soldiers in the 1950s fighting in Malaya during the Malayan emergency. And it's not comprehensive by any means, but it's quite what I hope is quite an aesthetic little set of contents, and some of them are quite jungle specific, some are more general issue at the time, but as I say, hopefully it'll be of interest to have a look through this. Certainly the idea of it is partly for aesthetics, of course, to make the display look nice, so that is part of it. As we normally do, we'll start on the left hand side, work back to front, and then do so sort of in lines going across. That's the idea anyway. We'll see where we get to. Of course, in the back corner here we have the cup from the 1944 pattern equipment, so the cup that nests with that the bottle from that set, and on top of that here we have a spoon, a period spoon, nested on the top there, or just rested on the top rather, and underneath that we have a Tommy cooker, and this of course being a little alcohol stove. The conclusion of that is based on some footage from British Pathé, which I will put a card up in the corner of the video here for you to see. That'll be up there now, showing a jungle patrol, a one-day patrol, and the men are carrying Tommy cookers in order to brew up. So I've included that there. They were certainly carried by some troops at the time. And then moving forward to the far left, we have here, of course, a tin of foot powder, a very important bit of kit in the jungle. Care of the feet is particularly important in the humidity and the damp conditions of the jungle, particularly with the British jungle boot, which previous videos again, card in the corner of the video here to have a look at that if you wish. Does not drain, and therefore your feet do need extra care in order to stave off things like foot rot, or at least try and reduce it as much as possible. And then in the very centre here, actually we'll have to, in the very front centre here, we'll have to probably talk about this in one go, is the part of the J-Pack, which is the jungle first aid kit, very much the equivalent of America's jungle first aid kit, but the British issue example, introduced as part of the late war jungle equipment, and used post-war, as a lot of that equipment was for operations in the jungle in the post-war years. This contains various items, various tubes containing tablets which do various things. I have made a video on this previously. I do intend to make an updated version at some point, so I'll leave the details for that. Some of the contents we can see here is a strip of Elastoplast which fits in a little pocket here, tucks underneath the instructions, and then there's a little tin here which contains antiseptic, styptic pencil, one example, and a razor blade in there as well. So as I say, the contents of this will be covered in more detail in a future video. Starting at the back again, we'll move forward along the centre line here. We have the sterilizing outfit, the water bottle sterilizing outfit, which of course contains two bottles, sterilizing tablets, and then tablets to take away, well, the intent to destroy the chemical that sterilizes the water and take away the taste. So you have that set at the back there, very similar to that issued from the Second World War, of course. And then just tucked away in here, hopefully you can see it, we do have what colloquially referred to as the Burma Knife, again part of the late war jungle equipment, so that's tucked away in the back there. And then in front of that we have here a refillable tube of insect repellent, and this has one end which is an open hole that can be refilled, and the other end has much like a salt cellar, it has a shaker head. That's the insect repellent there, which is another very important piece of kit to have in the jungle. Very important piece of personal kit to have in the jungle when you're dealing with all sorts of nasty biting insects. At the back here in the right hand corner we have a large player's cigarette tin, and these were used not for their intended role of carrying cigarettes, but were in fact used to carry documents in some instances, notably maps that needed to be kept dry, and it was certainly an effective way of doing this. And there is certainly anecdotal evidence that this was done by some, so I've included that there. It's quite an interesting little bit of kit to have at the back there. And then in front of that, we have a National Service enlistment notice. Now I've included this because it is of course important to note, and a lot of people think of National Service, they think of the basic training involved and NCOs throwing mattresses out of windows and so forth. But once this was over, of course, the men were off on various forms of service. And one of them was you could be shipped over to Malaya And prior to that, of course, you could also be shipped over to Korea potentially, but the Malayan emergency, jungle fighting, many of the men were national servicemen. So we have that there just as sort of a reminder of that. We have the National Service Enlistment Notice there. And then the last thing to talk about is another civilian item in the centre here, and that is a tin of Elastoplast waterproof plasters. Now this is a period tin from the 1950s, the early 50s, certainly these were around, period advertisements show that. And I have come across examples of chaps talking about carrying extra plasters. You are provided, of course, with Elastoplast dressings in the J-pack, but this is intended as section issue, and the number of plasters provided here would not go very far. So carrying extra plasters is a good idea in the jungle, certainly where you're likely to possibly get nicks, grazes and so forth simply from moving through the jungle itself. Plasters are a good idea, and this is a pack of waterproof plasters, as I say, from the time period. So there we have the contents of the cabinet as they are now. As I say, from the 1950s period, some specific jungle warfare items here. The idea of this is to show some of the small kit of troops deployed during the Malayan emergency in the early to mid 1950s. But obviously there's some more generic items there as well that will be seen in other theatres too.
So the first cabinet contents video for a little while. I hope you found it interesting looking through those bits and pieces, as I always say. If you have and you'd like to see more from the channel, then please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. And whether you're newly subscribing or you've previously subscribed, please do make sure you hit the little bell, the little notification button down below. That will of course alert you when I upload future videos. If you really like my uploads and you'd like to support the channel, you can. There's both Patreon and PayPal linked down below, and as ever, a huge thank you to everybody who supports the channel using those methods. It really is very much appreciated. Thank you everyone for that. If you'd like to follow the channel on social media, you can. There's Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, all linked down below. If you'd like to make contact but you don't really use social media, there is of course an email address down there as well. But that's everything for this video, so until next time, bye for now.